Hey everybody, Mountain Grandma here, and today it's all about tinctures. You asked for it and you got it. Here is my review of how to make a tincture in a couple different ways. We're going to talk about the folk method, and then we're also going to talk about how to make more specific tinctures. In other words, how to make the tinctures that are in certain ratios with a certain alcohol percentage. And you can see that on the lid, like 1 to 4, 40%. You see there for nettle, and for astragalus, 1 to 5. So the reason that there are sometimes percentages and ratios listed like that is because all herbs have different constituents, and those constituents might be, some of them, more extracted best with alcohol and some extracted best with water. So if you reference great books like this one that I'm going to show you, it's got a full list of 35 herbs. And if you see here, it's going to tell you the plant part. So root, flower, fresh, dry, what is it? Weight to volume, which is that ratio I was talking about. The percentage of alcohol in your menstruum. Remember that menstruum is just a fancy word for your alcohol water mixture. And then it even gives you the dosage. So you know, like if you follow the rule of thumb for certain herbs and you're extracting into your tincture what you're supposed to be, that dosage is going to be effective. So that's really what it's all about. It's all about making sure you have a tincture that is the most effective that it could be. Now, some of the herbs that I'm going to be making tinctures from today are not listed in that 35 herb list in the other book. So I'm referencing this book and one other book. And this one's great. It kind of does a breakdown of each of the herbs, gives a little brief spill on what it's effective for. And then it tells you, what the ratio should be of herb to menstruum. And then it also tells you like the percentage. So this is super helpful, and the dosage and the frequency that the person should be taking. And here's where I should stop and say, this is for the My Home Apothecary 25 collaboration being hosted by myself and Natasha at Budget Preppers. And you need to make sure to leave a comment down below because our sponsor, herbwhisperer.com, is donating a home herbalist course. So make sure you don't miss out on that, and there's going to be other great prizes. Check out the description box below, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, one more formality. Medical disclaimer. I am not a doctor, and this information is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content contained is for general informational purposes only, and this channel makes no representation and assumes no responsibility for the accuracy of information referenced in this video. You are encouraged to confirm any information and review all information regarding any medical condition or treatment with your physician or naturopathic doctor. All right, I'm going to start with nettle because it's a common herb that's used. It's an alterative, alkalizing diuretic urinary tract tonic. And it's mostly used to treat hay fever, asthma, gouty arthritis, and edema. But it does have contraindications for anyone who's pregnant and also for anybody who has edema due to heart disease or kidney insufficiency. Now let's go ahead and make this. So the reason that the nettle tincture is so easy is because the required alcohol content is 40 to 50%, which is what you already have in an 80 proof or 100 proof vodka, which is what most people use. I'm using 80 proof vodka, which is at 40%. So my alcohol content in this tincture is going to be 40%. Now the other part is the ratio, the 1 to 4. You see the 1:4. That means 1 part herb to 4 parts menstruum, and that's just a fancy way of saying, your alcohol water mixture. In this case, our alcohol is 40% already, so we don't have to do anything fancy. We need 4 times vodka to the 1 part herb. I'm using 28 grams of herbs, so step 1, measure your herbs. That's your starting point. Step 1, measure your herbs. Find out what your ratio is. It's 1 to 4. So I need 4 times my amount of herb in my vodka. So I need 112, because 4 times 28 is 112 milliliters of vodka. And I'm going to just simply pour this guy into this guy. So let's go ahead and do that. But I wanted to show you when you label it after you make your tincture. See how I did this? I've got the name nettle, the Latin name Urtica dioica, And then I've got the ratio 1 to 4, 40%. And then this date here is the date that it's going to be a mature tincture. This is when it will be ready for me to decant and put into dropper bottles. And here it is. You want to make sure you've got it in a good container with a tight lid because you don't want air to get in here. You'll shake it every day for 6 to 8 weeks. Moving on, we are going to be making a hawthorne tincture, and this is a cardiotonic herb. It's great for your heart and it's for long-term use. It does not do well with acute treatment. It's really great for anybody who has any chronic circulatory or heart issues. Again, reference your own literature, make sure it's good for you. So for this one, we're doing a 1 to 5 ratio, and I've got my step 1 completed, measuring out the herbs you saw in that jar, 52 grams of herbs. To find out how much of the menstruum or alcohol water mixture I need, I multiply the 52 grams times 5, and we need 260 milliliters. So the next thing we need to find out is, well, okay, we got 52 grams of herbs, but how much alcohol and how much water do we need? Well, we know the goal is 70% alcohol. So we need 70% alcohol, and 100% minus 70% is 30%. So we need 30% water, okay? Now, next step. To find out how much alcohol, we're going to take our total menstruum. Remember, that's what this guy is, your alcohol water mixture. Your menstruum. So our total menstruum, which is we know is 260. We're going to multiply that by the percentage of alcohol that we want. We want 70% or 0.70. And then we're going to divide this by the percentage of alcohol that's in whatever alcohol you're using. I'm using Everclear. It is 95% alcohol, or 0.95. So when you do the math on this, you finally end up at 260 times 70 is 182, divided by 0.95 is 192 milliliters of Everclear. That's how much Everclear we need, and that's how much I have in that guy right there. Next step, how much water? The next one's easier. For water, we know it's just going to be the total menstruum minus the milliliters of Everclear that we're using. And remember, our total menstruum was 260 milliliters. That comes right here. The 5 times the 52 grams of herbs was our total menstruum, which was 260. So 260 minus the 192 that we just figured out up here, that means we need 68 milliliters of water. And I've got that guy right here. All right, so your next steps are to mix the alcohol and water together first. So you see me pouring this in there, and then I stir it up with a spoon off camera, and then we're just going to pour this into our herbs, and that's it. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and get a lid on this, shake it up, and get it labeled, and I'll show you what that label is going to look like. This labeled with the name hawthorne, what's in there, leaves, berries, and flowers. Also the Latin name, Crataegus monogena, I don't know how to pronounce that. And then what it is, 1 to 5 ratio, 70% alcohol. The date that the tincture will be ready. And remember, you're going to take it and you're just going to shake it up every day. Now for this next tincture I'll be making, I'm actually referring to this book. The next herb I'll be doing a tincture for is astragalus. Latin name, astragalus membranicus. And this book is great because look here. It shows you all kinds of stuff. Standard decoction, tincture, a glycerite, syrup, capsular powder. We're going to float up here to tincture. We're doing the dried root. It's 1 to 5, 40% alcohol. This is another easy one because if you'll remember, 80 proof alcohol is 40% alcohol. So there's not a whole lot of calculations you need to do. You just need to weigh your herb. So I got 63 grams and then you multiply this times this number here to come up with how much of your menstruum you need, or, you know, alcohol water mixture. In this case, the vodka I'm using is 80 proof. It is 40%, so there's not going to be any combining water and alcohol going on. I'm just going to be using straight vodka. I'll go ahead and add to this my 315 milliliters of the 80 proof or 40% vodka. There we go. All right, another one done. I will be getting this one labeled and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, and we've got this labeled astragalus root, astragalus membranicus, 1:5 ratio, 40% alcohol. Ready on September 20th, 25, 2 to 4 milliliters, 4 times per day, dosage listed. And there it is. All right, the next tincture we'll be making is of ashwagandha, which literally means smell of horse. And this is supposed to be at a 1:5 ratio, 70% alcohol. Ashwagandha is a tonic or adaptogen, and it's great for anxiety. It's one of those herbs that you need to take for a long time to see any effect. And I've got 31 grams of it here. So remember, that's what you start with. Measure your herbs. I measured mine. It's 31 grams. And then because it's a 1:5 ratio, we need 5 times that amount for the menstruum or alcohol water blend. So 5 times 31 grams is 155 milliliters. We've got 70% alcohol, and if you take 70% from 100%, you're left over with 30%. So we need 30% water. And we're going to be using Everclear, which is 95% alcohol. So here's how to get your total Everclear that you need. Total menstruum times your percent of alcohol desired, all divided by the percent of alcohol that there is in Everclear. So we've got 155 milliliters, that's our total menstruum, coming from up here, times 0.70, which is just our 70% in decimal form. It's 0.70, and we're dividing it by the percentage of the alcohol that's in Everclear. Everclear has 95% alcohol, so the decimal point version of 95% is 0.95. When you do the math here on the calculator, your resulting value is 114 milliliters of Everclear. That's what we need. And then to figure out how much water you need, you just take your total menstruum minus your milliliters of Everclear. So remember, our total menstruum was 155 milliliters. And we're going to subtract the 114 milliliters of Everclear that we're going to be using, which gives us 41 milliliters of water. All right, and your next steps are mix your alcohol and your water, combine those well first, and pour it over your herbs. And then you'll get a lid on there. Make sure you shake it every day for 6 to 8 weeks, and I'll show you what the label looks like. We've got the name, ashwagandha, the Latin name, Withenia somnifera, 1:5, 70% alcohol, the date it'll be ready, and the dosage at the bottom. All right, this next one is skullcap. It is another great anxiety herb, also good to help with insomnia and headaches as well. It's a cooling bitter, and again, do your homework. Make sure that it's a great one for you before trying this. But you can see here I'm doing a 1:5 ratio, 60% alcohol, and I'm starting with 35 grams of herb. So my total menstruum is 175 milliliters. So the equation's going to be total menstruum times the alcohol desired divided by the alcohol in your, in my case, Everclear. So we have 175 milliliters times 0.60 divided by 0.95. And that gets me to my final answer of 111 milliliters Everclear. And then I'm just going to take the total menstruum, which was 175, and I'm going to subtract the 111 milliliters Everclear here to determine how much water I need, which ends up being 64 milliliters of water. And here it is, and let me show you that label. We've got skullcap, Scutellaria laterifolia, 1:5 ratio at 60% alcohol. Should be ready by September 20th, and 10 drops to 5 milliliters 2 to 4 times a day. Don't forget to shake it every day. You can leave it a little longer if you'd like. I've got them set for 6 weeks. And that's it. I hope this was helpful to everyone. If there's anything you'd like me to chat more about in regards to tinctures, please leave it down in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a comment so you can be in the giveaway. And remember, down in the description box is going to be a playlist of all kinds of great content creators that are uploading all kinds of videos about their home apothecary and herbal medicine, food as medicine, all kinds of great stuff. Check them out. Leave comments. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, keep your joy, folks.